Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show live. We're taking a look at the non-league teams across our region. I'm Steven Browne and I'm delighted to say joining me as ever is Lewis. Lewis, how are we doing, mate?
Not bad, Steve. Yourself, mate?
Yes, good, thank you. Good. It's been a few weeks since we last spoke to you on the show. Obviously, it was quite a interesting episode. We'll say the least. We had Martin Knight, the director of football, Park, having you on just to kind of reflect on that briefly. The fallout from that interview, kind of what's happened since. I mean, what's been your take on it?
Put me on the spot. No, you know what? And I, like I said, there's always been that mutual respect. We don't always have to agree on everything. And I think, obviously Martin's there to, to do his job. And like I say, from that business aspect, just, if you look at it in that term of Jacob Blythe and, that from a business perspective, it makes complete sense. I think, obviously there's a lot of factors into it, and I appreciate where Martin's coming from, and like I say, sometimes it's difficult when even when you put yourself in a normal work situation. I think sometimes if you're involved in it, it's sometimes you can. I'm not saying obviously relevant to Martin, but sometimes you see a point of view that because you're involved in it so much, sometimes it's nice and appreciate obviously comments outside and see where that feedback is, and I think it's still, I think the club still need to engage a lot more with fans. I've spoken to Martin since, it's been no issue and there never will be. Like I say, we've got a lot of respect for each other, and it wasn't pointing fingers and blaming. It's we both want the best of the club at the end of the day, and I think this is where the club still have a lot to do. Some of his suggestions of, engaging with fans, putting a plan together. I've not been involved or heard anything. And whether that's happening, it's entitled to the club to decide. It was ironic, I think, pretty much soon after the actual interview. For instance, like the Southport announced that they'd got a bit of extra investment and they've advertised quite heavily. And they appoint a fan liaison officer as well, which, goes a long way to be between that link between, the board directors and the fans and the club. So, I'm not saying that is the answer. It's an option. But yeah, I think there's a bit of work still to do. And it's like I say, I've always said, I want the club to thrive and not just survive. There is that difference, and it's all well and good surviving. There's absolutely no issue with that whatsoever. But it's to take the club forward and doing it in the right way as well. And unfortunately, sometimes, as we all know, as quite passionate football fans, when results are not going your way, some of that does get brought to it's brought to the front of people's minds a lot more. But like I say, I think even if we were mid-table or challenging for playoffs, these issues still for me exist at the moment, and still can be addressed quite easily, quite simply. But let's see what happens. Like I say, there's end of the season's coming up. Maybe there's a lot of work to do pre-season, regardless of what division we're in. And like I say, I think we all just want the best of the club, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving on to matters on the pitch then. Obviously, around the time that we spoke to Martin on the show, it was a terrible run of form. They lost to Telford, and I think they'd lost to Boston as well around that time. And didn't improve after, lost to Buxton as well. But Curzon Ashton, we said, didn't we? What would happen when we play Curzon Ashton again? And they got a good point, a great point then. It's been a decent run of form, unbeaten now in 4, and giving yourselves a chance, Lewis. What you can't say fairer than that.
Yeah, no, and it is ironic. We picked on the thing of Jacob Blythe leaving, and we're not replacing a striker, but Will Longbottom's played very well up front, and the lads have. I think we've almost had to adopt to a bit of a different system because of one personnel we've got and strength in depth, and injuries and suspensions thrown in there as well. So, there's been on very, very few occasions where some of the how can I put it? Some of the performances have been in question. I look at Southport away, Gloucester away. That they are very questionable performances where we heads went and we've lost by a lot of goals. And I wouldn't say that was the same even, Buxton, that wasn't the same. I think Buxton just played very well. But, there's a few occasions where you can start looking and questioning some of that stuff. But, on the whole, it's not really been questioned by a lot of us. But like I say, the last 4 games have been, decent results. I think, the Curzon game, 0-0 probably summed it up as a fair result for both teams. It was a poor quality game. Curzon probably, if anything, edged it a little bit. We did hang on a tiny bit in towards that second half. But again, George wasn't really massively troubled. If anything, we probably had a better chance with Longbottom, and he just, in front of goal from a cross on the left hand side, and he didn't tuck it away. But I think from there, the point, we need wins. And that's what we said. A point is in a season is not a bad result, but the situation winning isn't enough. And then we followed up against Southport with a really good 2-0 victory. First half, Southport had a lot of possession again without troubling George in goal. And then second half, we dominated the game. And without sounding disrespectful to Southport, even though they absolutely hammered us at their place, in terms of teams coming to us at Horsfall, they were one of the worst teams I've seen. They were just, they were poor. And I think that's where, unfortunately for Southport, they've dragged themselves, unfortunately, into a bit of trouble at the moment. They've probably just done enough. But then, credit to our lads, we stepped up and did really well in that. Then following up that Darlington 2-2 draw, first half, we again played well, played the conditions well, even though we were 1-0 down. We probably deserved to go in 2-1 at half time. I've never been to an Avenue game before and heard somebody, this will make you laugh, maybe viewers laugh, where somebody said Pep Guardiola's got a lot to answer for because Avenue were playing out from the back. I mean, I've never heard Park Avenue,
Phenomenal.
To be linked with Manchester City in my life.
Wow.
But, Darlington came back in second half. I'll be honest, I think we were slightly fortunate to get away with that as a point. For me, Darlington probably should have had 3 penalties in that. For me, there was one in the first half, which I know people around me were questioning what I was thinking. But for me, I thought it was a penalty on Jacob Hazel from George. I think he got the man before Hazel. My own opinion. I think right towards the end, Luca Verns just completely taking out their strike in the penalty box. How he's not seen it, I've no idea. And then the third one, it's probably been seen by a lot of viewers on social media, where Mitchell has basically saved the ball with his hand, and the referee is not giving a penalty. And we're at the other end of the pitch and we can see it, and now he's not giving a penalty. I have absolutely no idea. So it was nice to go in the favour of ours, really. But we were fortunate to probably come away with a point of that one. And then, but we missed the golden opportunities as well in the final minute ourselves. I mean, like I say, weekend, I'll be honest, it was a bit of a blur because it was a stag do. But
from the little that you did see,
yeah, I know. And then we followed it up with a really good, solid 1-0 win against Banbury. We deserved to win that. For me, I've heard the comments on Banbury manager and ourselves, and it was wasn't the best of games, but a 1-0 victory for us, I thought was fair. And it was great to see again Miles Baptiste, who's academy product, getting involved in a goal and assisting it again. Who's developing and growing into the game. And Harrison Hopper, who's probably one of the smallest people on the pitch for us, rises almost to 6'4" and nods it in the top corner. So, sometimes it goes for you, sometimes it doesn't. But like I say, the draws against Curzon and Darlington are not bad. Is a season, but we are needing wins and we're needing a few favours from other teams. So maybe a little bit too late, but it's just nice to see the lads have a little bit of freedom. There's no pressure on us. People are expecting us to go down, and you know what? Like I said, let's just see what Saturday brings.
I guess was it your stag do? Did you say?
Yeah.
Is that why you were walking on?
That's why we're a mascot. Yeah. That's why we're a mascot. Yeah.
I saw that picture. I was like, hang on, what's going on here? Do they need players that desperately? What's happening?
To be fair,
what's your position?
Left back on bench. So I think it was fun and games because obviously I know Luca right well anyway.
Yeah.
And he's obviously been told about it. So, we had a bit of a laugh. And obviously, probably right or wrong with the referee. I don't know if he recognised me as well. Because we're having a chat before and he says, kind of what you're doing here. So I don't know if he's heard me probably, maybe not agree with some of his decisions over the past few years. Or whether he just actually didn't know who I was. So obviously explained a bit why, it was stag do and all that kind of stuff. And me being me, said what will make my day is if you have a good game for once. So, if there's going to be opportunity to do it, I've got to do it there and then. And to be fair, I had a good game. But yeah, it was a blur.
Yeah.
Good do.
Yeah,
I've been
yeah.
told I've got to go back for the next 3 games to be a lucky one.
That'd be great, wouldn't it? Yeah, lucky charm on the side there. When you look at the league positions, and it's 3 games to go. Bradford Pack, I mean, you've got a game in hand as well, really vital game in hand. They sit on 42 points at the moment. Farsley on 47, Blythe on 47.
Yeah.
I mean, it, like you said, may be possible that they've given themselves too much work to do. But if you win that game in hand, I think, is that going to be the Wednesday game? Then is that going to be
Next
the actual
Wednesday?
game?
Yeah, next Wednesday against Alfreton. Yeah.
God, yeah. See, that's the other thing as well, because it's so close and the extra game in a short number of days. I mean, you worry about the impact of that as well, don't you?
I think, yeah, there is that. I mean, listen, we've got it's not an excuse. It's a fact. We've got a really long trip on Saturday to Hereford, probably the most southern team that we're going to face all season. We're setting off at 8 o'clock, and we're not probably going to be back till probably 11. So, and we've got to take that into account. But we've just got to give ourselves a chance on Wednesday to make a difference. It could be that, potentially by the end of Saturday, we could pretty much be down, if not down, depending on what other results go. So, it's a massive game. I think it's unfortunate that we probably didn't get the chance to play the game before when it was originally supposed to be played. But obviously, often got stuck in a traffic situation, so it had to be postponed. Maybe it works in our favour with the run of form that we're on, but I know it sounds a really boring and horrible cliche, but we are taking each game as it goes, because there's no other way to do it. And we've not got a bad record against Hereford, albeit last season we did lose, but previous to that, we have kind of been one of their teams that we've struggled to beat. So, like I said, yeah, it's not going to be easy, but we've just got to play. We've just got to play to our strengths and just give it a go, because even though people may watch it on a stream against Darlington on the National League website, we were drawing, and George Sykes came with going up for the corner in the 94th minute, and we were drawing. We need wins, so that's how desperate it is. So. Listen, and it sounds pessimistic. I don't expect us to stay up, but it's the hope that kills you, isn't it? And this is where we are at the moment. That these 4 games are giving us that slight bit of light at the end of the tunnel to see what can possibly be done. And there's a lot of teams around us. What I'm like. I've looked through the runnings of other teams and kind of potentially predicted of what could potentially happen around there. And for me, we need probably about 50 points. And what we're on 42 now, so we've got to win every game. And without being disrespectful to Hereford, we could possibly do that on Saturday. But when you're facing Alfreton, who are going for a playoff, and you've got Fylde, who could potentially be playing for the title on that final day, it's a real big ask. But strange things happen, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's it like from your point of view as a fan? The next week is obviously such a crucial week. I mean, are you just waking up every day thinking, oh God, like it's kind of a mixture of like kind of nerves and excitement, but dread, like.
Without taking any away from the effort of the players, I think, I'll be honest, I've been resigned to relegation for probably, I'd say, a couple of months. Don't get me wrong, you're still a bit nervous going into it, but there's a bit more of for me personally, a bit more relaxed feel, because people are not expecting us. Personally speaking, and I hope the lads are listening to this, and I know that, sometimes some of them do, they can prove me wrong, and I'll absolutely go fair play, lads, but I think we've just given ourselves a little bit too much to do. So from that point of view, I'm more relaxed than I have been in the past. If I were the likes of Farsley and Blythe, who I went to watch midweek, that's where I probably would be a little bit more nervous, and probably, like you said, waking up thinking, what can we do in that situation? I think they've, weirdly enough, I say they're in a bit more trouble, because they've got it's in their own hands to probably take out of it, whereas for us, we've got to win and rely on others at the moment, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's this about that I've been reading that may not be guaranteed that 4 teams actually get relegated? Is that still a possibility, depending on?
I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening. I believe that Peterborough Sports, I think, I'm being given an extension for their ground. Because usually it's about the 31st of March. I don't know when or what that looks like at the moment. But I think, obviously people are in and around that relegation zone. That last 4th spot was, for me, you'll know, I said it right at the beginning of the season, for me it'll go down to the final day. And with this kind of hanging over a little bit of getting the ground sorted for that time, adds another piece of a jigsaw as well for that relegation battle. So I don't know. I'm not sure where that's going to go, what's going to happen with that. I've seen comments on social media. There's a bit of frustration and on the other side as well, to get the ground sorted for whatever that season looks like. But yeah, I mean, if it comes down to that, and they've been given an extension, I don't know. Yeah, it's going to be tough, because I generally think it's going to go down to the final day, and not the final kick of the ball, but it could go that way. So I think if you're a fan of any team, regardless of whatever the situation is, I think we want to be knowing exactly where people stand on that final day. Because I think the worst thing is to not know what happens at full time at 5 o'clock on that Saturday. I think people need to be assured of either Peterborough have met the ground grading or they haven't, and that that's absolutely set in stone. But for us to potentially go to full time and not knowing an outcome, and then it's decided later on, I think will be. It doesn't really look good, does it?
No, exactly. You mentioned before as well about the streaming service as well. The fact that Park Avenue's game was on there. What do you make of games being able to be streamed at this level? I mean, what's your take on the whole thing?
Well, I know obviously at the moment, the rules, you're not really supposed. Well, you're not supposed to, are you? At all on 3 o'clock Saturday kickoffs. I don't know what the actual rules and laws are like for the leagues below. I think it is slightly different. My opinion is, I don't think it does any harm to clubs, because I think it widens the reach and engagement between fans. I think it gives the opportunity to those who are unable to get to a game, whether they live overseas or too far away to get to the ground, or medical reasons or whatever. Because even at the time previously, when the streaming was there during COVID, it could be done, so it can be done. It's what that looks like for clubs and how that benefits clubs. So I'm not against it at all. I think it works out. I think I'll be honest, I don't think it really takes away the crowd, the attendance at games. I think people will turn up to games regardless. Maybe have a bit more of a say if it's a horrible December Tuesday night and it's raining at Horsfall. I can appreciate that's where it might be, but I think where it's going to be a challenge is, admission prices on the gate against possibly a streaming service and what that looks like. If you're potentially going to be, I don't know, you're almost having to pay a fiver to watch a stream of the game, compared to paying 12, 14 quid on the gate. That could have an effect as well. But it's, again, how that money's distributed. I can see the benefits for it completely. It just needs to be thought out really well, because we've seen teams in highlights packages. I'm thinking of teams like Leamington, especially, who produce an exceptional media package. Darlington the same. Their highlights package is top notch. And I'm going as far as say, if you were a football league team, you'd be absolutely fine with that. It's they're producing really good stuff, and the quality and the talent's there in non-league to deliver it. It's, again, down to resource, time, effort, and kind of the rules and laws that people have got to abide by. So, but for me, being a non-league fan, I think it would open up a wider audience for people to watch the games and kind of appreciate non-league as what it is. But on the flip side, you when you sit at home watching a stream, you kind of lose that feel of a non-league game as well. You go to football to enjoy it for whether it's with your mates, with your family, with whoever that looks like. For me, non-league, why enjoy it is because you can go and have a drink with people and have a good laugh. And don't get me wrong, there's a few instances like they are anywhere, but you won't get that at home, so you lose that atmosphere. That for me, that's the pull of non-league, and I think you'd lose that through the stream. So it's engaging and kind of wrapping your arms around them people who are going to watch the stream, and almost you've got to look after them and communicate with them in a completely different way from what you would do probably fans like myself who'll go home and away. So that's going to be an interesting. It's a challenge because, like I say, a lot of people who work at clubs at this level are all volunteers and have got jobs outside of work. So it's going to be a tricky one. But like I say, it's been done before. So and maybe we might just need to rethink a little bit of that audience and what the product is all about, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Elsewhere then, Farsley, you went to the game. Huge game it was against Blythe.
Massive game.
Didn't go in their favour, unfortunately. What type of game was it? What did you make of it, Lewis?
It's a poor game. There was a lot of tension, a lot of nerves.
Yeah.
Pretty much what I expected. I did say to a few people who were known and went with the game anyway. I said, I don't think it's going to be entertaining. There's going to be a lot of nerves. There's going to be a lot of, you're not going to get free-flowing football at this time of year. The pitch doesn't really potentially suit that kind of play anyway. But when I've watched Farsley, they do play some really good football on that pitch anyway. For me, when I watched it, Farsley looked disjointed. They were quiet, which really surprised me. They were Blythe were the same, if I'm being honest as well, but Farsley especially were. I expected a lot more communication between them, and I think that's where there were just a few instances in the game where, a couple of players going for the same ball, whether that was a header or a tackle or the pass was just not right, and they just didn't seem at the races, I think, from the first whistle. And I think what kind of galvanised the fans a little bit that were there is that how Blythe didn't get a penalty in the first 5 minutes from a corner is honestly beyond me. But because they didn't get it, it seemed to galvanise a little bit of the fans to probably think, actually, this could potentially be our night. But they never really kicked on. I think they looked stronger towards the end of the first half, if anything, the final 10 minutes. The thing with Farsley, they've got match winners. And ironically, I know Jordan Nicky got 2 goals for Blythe, but for me, Farsley have got real good match winners in that team, like Sir Frank Mulhern, who's capable of doing it. We've got Theo Williams on loan from Sheffield United. We've got players who can literally turn a game like that. Whereas I think Blythe are probably more of a real collective team who will have to really battle it out. And, we've got the odd player here and there, but nobody that can really take the game, probably like a Mulhern and Williams. But to Blythe's credit, I think Graham Fenton got his tactics absolutely spot on at half time. I was right next to the dugouts because I thought it'd be interesting to see what you can hear between both dugouts. But Fenton he were writing a lot of notes, and clearly he's gone in at half time and told them to kind of get the guys on the half turn. The likes of Clayton, Butler, and kind of just put it over the top of him and get round the side, and it worked really well. The first goal were a real poor one to concede. He's got beyond his man. It's taken a bobble, and there's 2 unmarked Blythe players against 1, so there was only one outcome, and even that was a scruffy finish. And then the second goal were really well worked, but again, it was just switching off at big moments where the left back's delivered a brilliant cross in, but the right back was kind of chasing the ball rather than looking for his man. And it was a great header at the near post to put it past Burnley, but again, they're just avoidable things. And unfortunately, for Farsley's perspective, once we went 1-0 down, you struggle to see where they were going to come back. And I know hindsight's a wonderful thing when you talk about it, but I did say that, I think the first goal in that game means you're just not going to lose that game. You might draw it and you might win it, but that first goal was just so big. And you could tell the nerves. But it's, for me, I think it's a shootout between them two of who goes down. Farsley have got Gloucester on the weekend and then Spennymoor away, which is not easy. Gloucester going for playoffs, and Spennymoor as well have got a chance to get in there at the last minute as well. And I think Blythe have got Alfreton away and Hereford at home. So Farsley they've got the inferior goal difference as well, which doesn't help them. And watching them on Tuesday night, it's going to be tight. It's going to be really close. And I think Russ Wilcox will be looking at that performance on Tuesday and saying, actually, that's as bad as it should get for these next 2 games, because Farsley are capable of getting, 4 points, 6 points out of these 2 games. But then they showed probably the side on Tuesday that, a lot of fans did not want to see.
Yeah, God, what we're going to do if they both Farsley and Avenue got relegated? Blimey.
Another podcast.
Oh, well, we'll wait and see. I mean, what a finish it's going to be next week.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to try and do something live, on the Saturday or something.
Yeah.
Get a reaction and see what's going on.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be something in it. And like I said, what I mentioned before, it's going to go down to them final few minutes. And I've been there as a fan, whether, it's when you've been relegated and you're promoted in your playoffs, and for me, one of the best ever moments, probably the best moment, is when it was our Aguero moment at Kidderminster when we literally scored with the last kick of the game to send us in the playoffs. And I've never experienced that kind of feeling as a fan before, and it was the last kick of the game pretty much. To send us in the playoffs, and that's where it could go. And that's my point earlier, that you want it to be, you want to know the situation come full time on that Saturday, because as a fan, and I think the players and the clubs deserve that to make sure they know what's going to happen. But yeah, it's going to be tense. And there could be potentially 5 teams going to that final day needing something to get out that bottom 4, and that's just crazy, And and in some respects, you look at Telford and they'll be disappointed for already down, obviously. But if they'd had a bit of form early in the season, they could have been in the mix. We could have had a final day situation where not one team is confirmed to be going down, which would have been unbelievable. And even you look at the top of the table, the playoff situation. You can go from, I think at the moment, you go from about 5th, and you can go all the way down to like the Kidderminster Spennymoor on 13th. They've all got a chance of getting it. I've said this, and I don't want to sound, disrespectful to the league, but anybody can beat anybody in this league, and it's proven it. But I've never also seen a league as well where a team like us at Avenue have lost 10 not lost, but have not won in the first 10 games and have still got a chance to survive.
God, yeah, you remember, don't you? It was an unbelievable start, wasn't it? For not for good reasons, but
and we've still got a potential chance to stay up. And I don't know many leagues at the moment where that's the case. Usually if that's a situation, you're normally down by now. I've been watching this league for a long, long time. Like Chester and Halifax and other teams have been in this league and have flown it, and it's been a real strong division.
Yeah,
it's a strong division, but there's also the league table doesn't lie, and you can tell where the gaps are, and it's almost split into 3 or 4 groups. Is this league at the moment? You've got 2 teams who are outperforming everybody else. That push free with Chester. You've probably got about 4. The rest of them, like I say, we're going down to 13th, 14th, and then the rest are banging out between themselves. So, it's a cliche, but the table does not lie. And when you come to 46 games, that's the truth. You're not going to get any people going, well, they didn't deserve to go down and they didn't deserve to get playoffs. They did,
Yeah. Absolutely. Dropping down a division then, Lewis, going to have a look at Guiseley and Liverpool just played each other in the last game. It was a narrow win for Guiseley and probably a much needed win, really, because they've been on a bit of a rough patch of form, to say the least.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of comments in interviews with Phillips as well. And I mentioned it in the last podcast we did about, it's almost having that eye on next year. Guiseley are not going to go up, they're not going to go down. They had a chance of getting probably the last minute playoffs, but I think from their perspective now, it's like you said, it's a good win in terms of getting that squad ready for next year. Because I think they've given a young lad in goal his debut as well. There's a few young players coming into that starting 11 as well. So it's almost like he's kind of shaping his team for next year, and depending on any trials or extra signings. And I think from guys' perspective, it's kind of it's quite, in a weird way, it's a steady season. I think, again, like I said earlier with Avenue, it's the hope that kills you a little bit. And when they were close to getting into that playoffs, and then they've just, they have slipped a lot. I think that's where it will hurt them. And I think guys would have given a decent account of themselves in that playoff situation. But having watched other games as well, like Warrington and Bamber Bridge, and Hyde and Radcliffe, I would have been surprised if guys had gone up. They'd have had to peak at the right time. The one that, we see in a lot of divisions where, teams do peak at the right time to go up. But, there's some good quality teams in that MPL. And for me, I'm looking at Radcliffe at the moment who seem to be doing really well. And I just think we've got a lot of experience to get over that line. But you wouldn't want to fancy playing each other in that playoff situation, because Warrington have been there over the past couple of years in the semi-finals and the final, and have lost out to Scarborough. But they've got that momentum still, and they've been good enough to be there again this year. So, yeah, I think from guys' perspective, it's not a bad season. It's not a great season. But I think it's one where they'll probably just get the foundations for Phillips to have a real good go at it next year.
Yeah. Do you expect them to do that? Do you back them next year to come back and make a fist of it?
I think they'll finish higher than what they've done this year. But I'd arguably say I think the division's going to be maybe a little bit tougher in terms of the general quality of that, because I think if you look at who's coming down, you could throw Avenue potentially in there, maybe the likes of Farsley and Blythe, and what teams fill into that. If they're going to be potentially 3 teams who are going to be looking to finish as high as they possibly can. Blythe and Farsley probably, I think, could do reasonably well in that division. You've got Macclesfield who are coming up, who have got a lot of budget, a lot of good players. They're riding an absolute wave at the moment, and I think they'll be one to fear. And you've got Worksop as well, who are absolutely flying. So the teams are coming up are as strong as they ever have been in that MPL. So Guiseley are going to have to match it with teams in and around the local area. Like, for instance, if Avenue and Farsley do go down, all three of them teams are going to be competing with each other to buy players from a local area. And it's sometimes money talks, like we mentioned in the last podcast. So it's, what does that look like? The Guiseley, who has the biggest budget out of them, is somebody else to afford this. What does that team look like? And when you've got three teams in the local area in the same division battling for the same players, it's going to be a real challenge. And I know we'll talk about Liversidge later on, but there might be a few players from there that might look to move on, and I expect them to finish higher. But I think if they reach the playoffs again next season, I think it'll be a good season. But they might, for me, I could be wrong, they might finish just outside. But he's got experiences, Philip, to get teams promoted, and I think that's why guys are recruiting, because he's got that track record, and it goes a long way in that division, because there's managers know that level of what's expectations pretty much on a Saturday, Tuesday, nearly every other week. And he's been there and done it before. That goes a long way. And when players recognise a manager who can get the best out of him and get promoted, they might go there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. After that, guys, lost. Liversidge bounced back with a 2-1 victory over Ashton. There's that second bottom. It's the bottom two that go down, isn't it, Lewis? So
Four go down.
Bottom four from there as well.
Yeah,
so,
Liversidge actually got confirmed as down because of the game in hand. So it was a blow to lose them. So and I think it's a shame, because I think they've probably had enough quality to get out of that. But I think, like I say, they've just probably had a few too many games where when they had them in hand, we've probably not made them count.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, wasn't it? Was it about February time where they had so many games in hand, didn't they? It's just crazy schedule.
And I think as well, I think Offafer losing the likes of Pav Singh as well was a big blow from a coaching staff perspective. So that's left a gap as well. I know early in the season, like Ross Daly left Liversidge to go to Guiseley, so there's been a bit of disruption. I think it'll hurt them because of it's taken them a long time to get to that level. But they're good enough to probably realise that it's just a learning experience. I know that's a really horrible thing to say, because it's rubbish when you say that as a fan, but they probably know that they know what's capable to get out of that division that we're going to be in next year, but also what it takes to be in that division and what to stay. So there'll be disappointment, but I think there's plenty they can probably learn from. And it wouldn't surprise me if Liversidge, we're up there towards the top of the East Division next season, really.
Yeah, fingers crossed for that, definitely. So going back then, Bradford Park Avenue, it's a huge week, Lewis. How do you feel going into it?
We'll see what Saturday. If we win Saturday, then I will be nervous, because that actually gives you a bit of hope, doesn't it? Yeah. Where do we go? There's been a bit of a weird feeling, like I say, that past 4 games where we've not lost. And there's been no fear. Don't get me wrong, we've not played, the Banbury game probably in the second half against Curzon, where I probably, they weren't great, but we just did enough. A draw isn't good enough, regardless of what people say. If we draw on Saturday, it's not good enough. We need to win. I think if you win, and depending on some of the fixtures around you, you look at, like I say, you've got Farsley against Gloucester, you've got Leamington away at Fylde, you've got, like I say, Blythe away at Alfreton. So we're all, you're not probably going to get it. There's going to be the odd result that probably won't go in Avenue's favour. But if them results go in Avenue's favour and we win on Saturday, and you've got that game in hand on Wednesday, we've not got a bad track record against Alfreton at home. Alfreton do have this, quite a recognised style to play. Does it suit 3G pitches? We proved last year that we beat them 5-0, and we were massively up against it, against a really strong Alfreton team. I'm not saying that's going to happen again, but I think if Avenue went into that final game, which you wouldn't fancy ourselves against Fylde at all, but if you went into that final game with a chance of staying up, I think that would be I think it would be an achievement. And I know it sounds quite patronising, but I don't mean it to be, because of we have got probably one of the smallest squads in the division, one of the, if not the lowest budget in the league. We've had to fight. We've not won in 10. The first 10 games. There's things that that happened. I was speaking on Saturday. When you look at it, the real points we've dropped over the season where things have not gone for us. I go back to that Boston decision penalty. I'm not saying we'd have scored, but you could have potentially pulled a point back there. We had Ollie Johnson scored against Farsley at home and he was onside. The goal was disallowed. That's 2 points dropped.
Yeah.
Kettering, when they got down to 9 men with the outfield player in goal, we had a penalty that Blythe put over and we only equalised in the last minute. So Kettering deserved to probably draw that, but neutrals will probably look at that going, that's potentially 2 points dropped. We were 2-0 up against Scarborough, drew 2-2, 2 points dropped. You could even go to the Leamington game away when Luke Ravern scored a perfectly decent goal, in my opinion, and it got chalked off, disallowed. We lost that. That's another point. So, if some buts, that's not out, you can't always determine it like that. But when you do look at it quite rationally, look at that, you're thinking, well, we'd have been safe. And I've said it to a lot of people. I've said it before. We were more than capable of staying in this league and would have been no problem. Other teams will probably say the same. But yeah, I think in terms of this week, it just hinges on game by game. If we win 1-0 against Hereford, it gives you a chance. But it feels like every game's a cup final at the moment. And again, it's a football cliche, but you just can't afford to draw. And maybe that opens up us for to get caught in a counter attack. But there's a bit of freedom. I think ourselves, which actually could do us a lot of favour. And again, I've said it in months gone by that when our lads have a bit of freedom and a bit of expression because they're young kids and they've got a bit of confidence, we arguably are a good team. We are a good team when they've got that in them. So maybe with that in mind, who knows? But yeah, I just it's bizarre to even think that we've got a chance of staying up.
Yeah.
And like I say, that result, Farsley Blythe, it's crazy. It sounds it's probably the best result Avenue could have had. Because we're still chasing that 47-point mark, and if Farsley got that extra point, if it puts them on 48, you probably need to definitely win all 3 games anyway. But it gave Farsley an extra point ahead. But in fairness, we're always chasing that point mark down. So even though Blythe have extended that advantage over Avenue, the points difference is still the same. You're still chasing that magic total. So there's going to be a lot of teams nervous. Kettering have got a horrific run in, an absolute horrific.
Yeah, they're not out of it.
Kidderminster away on the last day. Southport have got a tricky run in and have just been on an awful run. So, yeah, the biggest thing for us is to concentrate on Saturday, give yourself a chance on Wednesday, and then, like you say, Saturday is going to be quite nervous, I think.
Yeah. Hopefully the Great Escape is on. If you've enjoyed watching the video, please do pop a like on the video and also subscribe to the channel for more Bradford Park Avenue and non-league content. Well, I'll have my fingers, toes crossed, everything for Park Avenue this weekend and the rest of our teams in the region as well, especially Leeds as well, fighting our own but yeah, we've talked enough about them on other videos, so there we go. Lewis, thank you very much for joining us, mate. It'd be hopefully we'll be speaking again next week. We'll hopefully want to do something actually on Saturday the 29th as well and see how it all wraps up. We'll see. Hopefully Park Avenue is still in with a shout of staying up going into that final game, because it'd be absolutely remarkable if they are. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. I've been Steven Browne. Lewis, thank you very much, mate, and we'll speak again soon.
See you later, everyone. See you later, guys.
Thank you.